Hello, everyone. Sorry for being late. It has been sort of a wild couple days over here. I literally just got my rig set up like before I went live. And is that the fire alarm? No, it's a car. It's a car outside. Oh, all right. Anyway, this day has not gone the way I thought. Anyway, howdy to all. I see y'all been having a nice conversation while I went away. I'll read it here in a second. Is that a car alarm or is it the smoke detector? This may be a much shorter episode than I thought. All right, I'll read all this here in a second because that's interesting. Anyway, yeah, lots of conversation here. I'll have to read through it. Anyway, so sorry I'm late. Things have been a little nuts over here. That having been said, it is the 20th, and for those of you who've been around long enough know, this was sort of that day that I had put. So Sunday, as far as the prophets and talking about the election and all that. So I told everyone, hey, I'll give them till about here. So we're going to talk about all that on Sunday. We're going to have an interesting conversation on Sunday. I have been in study. I've been going over a lot of things. And I've touched on some things sporadically throughout last couple months, even last week. So I think a lot of things will fall into place. But just, it's going to be an interesting conversation on Sunday on that one. I'm still roughing it out. There's still some things I want to have sort of resolved. And we may not have everything resolved. There's always going to be questions. So we'll talk about that on Sunday. Just as a quick reminder, so I'm going to be going on vacation that first week of June. So we will be meeting this Sunday and next Thursday, but then after that, I am gone, like gone. I'll be off for those 2 Sundays and the Thursday in between. I'm out. Like my phone's being turned off. I'm not checking email. The people who know how to get a hold of me know how to get a hold of me. That's it. Like things have to be pretty bad to get a hold of me. That's all I'm saying. Not that I check Facebook regularly anyway, but it's like I'm shutting off Facebook, Messenger, all of it. If there's an emergency, text knows how to get a hold of me. There's literally a light, and it's got a bat on it anyway. But yeah, so just heads up for, in fact, what are the days on the calendar here? Hold on, let me write this down because I was looking for this earlier and I couldn't find it, just in case I lose it. Leviticus 18 through 16. Good. All right, should stay there, but let me give you the actual dates I'm out. So Sunday the 30th and then the 6th, I will be out on vacation. Just, I'd like to say Margaritaville, like living in but I'm too boring for that, and it's actually more of a staycation. Like we're gonna do some things around here, but mostly it's just I'm out. I'm not talking to anybody. Like things could blow up. I don't care. Sometimes you gotta get away. The older I get, the more I look at those verses where it says, Jesus went to be alone. I get it now. I really do. So anyway, that's about all. I will be sending funds to Alan on tomorrow night, so he'll have them by the end of next week. So if there's anything you want to PayPal over before for this sending, just do it tonight or tomorrow morning. That's the stuff's in the doobly-doo below, whatever the top, whatever that is. But yeah, like I said, I'll be going out tomorrow night. I I think that's pretty much it as far as news goes and updates. Oh, we're still. Bruce and Kara are still a little under the weather from this COVID thing. Rob seems to be doing pretty good. We're still going to pray for him. Gladys, obviously, we still need to stay in prayer for her. But if y'all have any other prayer requests, something I've not been good at is I used to keep a log of these things. I'm going to do better moving forward. So I'm going to put down everyone. I'm going to keep everything written moving forward. So just send me an email, Serial Papers. That's in the thing below. Just send me an email with whatever your prayer requests are. We're going to put them all in so we make certain they get read. My memory is notoriously evil and terrible, which is why I write everything down. So we're going to do that moving forward so we can stay on top of these things. So, okay, so I'm going to say howdy to everyone, but I'm going to read the conversation y'all are having because it looks like y'all are really having fun with it. That's my big fun. Some stories about hauntings. 3 different ones come to mind. What was that recount during my firstly, howdy Titan. Okay. Susan, cheese freak. Titan, I would agree with. So, considering being a good co-worker with Christ, yes, many times our actions belie the genuineness of our confession. The way we work is whenever we find ourselves. Yes, completely agree. Mr. D. Knuckle, howdy. Gene. First of all, tin doesn't work. It's lead. It has to be lead. Okay, completely derailing here. The whole tinfoil hat thing actually came. I read the paper years ago on the guy who actually, like, the reason that's considered a thing was there was a gentleman, I forget his name, but I actually read his paper, and it was from back in the 60s, 70s when you could buy these things, but it was actually a lead foil. It was leaded, and he put it on the inside of his ball cap, and he would wear it so that the aliens couldn't. His thought was it would block their telepathy, so they couldn't put you into a trance. And if they couldn't put you into a trance, they couldn't abduct you. So, just a little food for thought. It was. It's not actually tinfoil he was talking about. It was lead. So. And the dogs aren't happy. Oh, Slewfoot. No, that's another name for Satan, Beelzebub, Scratch. Him. Okay, so yes, Ham is okay, so we can address this in more detail maybe after we've gone through the chapter. Little dog, calm down. Most giants seem to have come through the line of Ham, but there are some that have come through other lines. But the vast majority of the ones that we are aware of do come through the line of Ham, and that may be connected to what we're going to see tonight. MH 1953, Lamp of Light, howdy. I got caught up in reading everything. As you all know, that is so good. MH 1953, I'm so happy to hear that. Rescue Mom, howdy. Okay, so just so for those who are maybe watching or watching recorded or listening, MH1953 just is letting us know that her husband was just offered a job making what he used to before he lost his job. Yeah, we were praying for y'all for a while, and he'd lost his job, and he was out of work for a while last year, and he got a new job, but now he's got another job that's going to pay him what he was being paid before. So that's great news, MH1953. We're really happy for you, and God is working. Oh, he can pull full SSI and work full time. Good for him. Good for him. Tom Paul. I think I missed something. Okay, I think we're good here. So real quick, Lilith is not a thing. Here's the idea that Lilith eventually went around and married Noah. Lilith isn't actually a thing. The myth of Lilith was the Lilith origins being Sumerian. There was a demon or really a group of demons, of female demons called the Elitu, and that comes to us as Lilith. The idea of Lilith being an individual who was human, but that actually comes out of the Middle Ages. It was a group of Jewish rabbis who they were looking at Genesis 1, they were looking at Genesis 2, and they had the same questions we did. And what they did was they created this whole idea out of basically whole cloth that Lilith was the first Adam, was Adam's first wife. That's exactly where that comes from. There is no reason to look at anything for that. Basically, if anyone says anything about the word Lilith, you can throw it out because it's all mythology. Not even good mythology. It was literally created by people trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist. And by the way, we really don't know that Ham, Shem, and Japheth are triplets. I will double check that, but my understanding is there's no evidence to think of them as triplets, but there is, and here's the other thing, because there really is so little information, we don't really even know that the woman that the wife of Noah post flood is the same woman that gave birth to the children. We don't. So Lamp of Light, not during my week off. Not during the week off, but before I will. But yeah, not during that week. But yeah, until then, yeah, send me the emails with your prayer requests so I can write them down. Cheese Freak. Okay, good. So you're okay. So Cheese Freaks, for those who may not know, Cheese Freaks had pneumonia recently, but you're negative for COVID. Good. We can. Well, again, we do. I would like to get to the actual text tonight. I mean, that is something we can, but forgiveness is a good thing to talk about. In fact, here's what I will say: it is going to play a huge role on Sunday. But if there's something specific about forgiveness, throw it in the chat. We'll see what we can do. Forgiving someone or throwing casting pearls before. That's a good question. Let me throw this one up there real quick. So we may not get to the text tonight. Oh, wrong one. Forgive someone, or if I'm just casting pearls before swine. Here's the problem. Sometimes you're doing both. The thing about forgiveness is, the thing I've learned about forgiveness is that it's hard, and sometimes you have to do it more than once. But forgiveness does not necessarily mean that you change your opinion, or that. Here's the problem. We tend to act as if to forgive someone means we stop recognizing them for who or what they are. That's not the case. There's no reason to think that is the case, ever. But we forgive because we were forgiven. And does that are the people that we're forgiving worthy of it? More often than not, they're not. But we weren't worthy either. We forgive for, in many ways, we forgive for ourselves, but mostly we forgive out of, as an example to the world of what God has done for us. Most people that you'll forgive will never actually deserve the forgiveness, but it doesn't mean that the pain necessarily stops, right? It doesn't change the damage. And you do need to realize that sometimes, you can forgive someone, but you can still recognize them for who and what they are and what they've done. You just, you've removed any obligation of them to you. You've removed that. But it doesn't necessarily mean it doesn't necessarily mean that person, particularly if they haven't asked for forgiveness, doesn't mean that you can be like, oh well, I can move on and know, and I can act as if you haven't done that thing. It's kind of hard when there's not a specific instance. For example, let's say a gentleman stole, who had working for me, lamp of light. Yes, please feel free to email me. Let's say he steals $3,000 from me. He never goes to jail, right? He never asks forgiveness. I give him forgiveness. I forgive him what he's done against me. But that doesn't mean I'm going to put him in charge of money again, right? I can forgive him, but I can also look at, if he comes back to me saying I need help, I still need to, that doesn't mean I don't look at him and say, is he actually contrite? Is he trying to do the right thing? These are still questions I have to ask. I can't act as if those events didn't happen. I have simply removed his obligation to me has been removed. In the same way, our obligations of the sin is gone from God. But that doesn't mean that you would necessarily look at someone in the flesh and say, okay, that's never happened. You just can't. And the problem, and again, if the question is, unfortunately, sometimes I've had to forgive people and move on. That sometimes those are family members too. Sometimes you have to just, you forgive and you move on. It doesn't. Yeah. Okay. Mr. Theological has it, says it right here. It jumps. I hate that. It doesn't mean you give them the opportunity to do it again. That's the best way of saying it, right? You forgive them, but it doesn't mean you have to give them the same opportunity to hurt you or someone else again. You don't have to put them in that situation, but you can forgive them. Yes, and Titan agrees with what I'm saying. It doesn't mean you have to stay there. And here's the thing, right? I've not been good at keeping up with my relatives. It's the McLean and me. We tend to just sort of drift apart. That's not anything I'm necessarily proud of. It just is what it is. I've discovered that more recently than not. Over the last couple months. But there are people, unfortunately, sometimes as a Christian, you kind of have to look at it and say, I'm sorry. this relationship can't necessarily exist, right? There is absolutely, the idea that, let's even forget, forgetting everything else, whether people were abusive or whatever, things like, let's get all that out of the way. Even being Christian says that Christ will separate us, right? Sometimes, he does separate us from the world, and sometimes being separated from the world means separating yourselves even from your own family members. It's a hard thing. It's not an easy thing, but it is sometimes something we have to do. But again, if those family members are harsh, if they are negative, if they are, you can forgive them for the harm that they've done you, but you don't have to be in that situation. You can pray for them, but don't hold the ill will, but you also don't necessarily need to be in that situation. Now, we honor our father and mothers. Note, it doesn't say love. We need to honor our fathers and mothers, even if they aren't, if they aren't good parents. Now, does that mean necessarily that you stay in a situation that's abusive? No. But there is a way to respect someone. Again, every situation is different, but you can respect someone without necessarily putting yourself in a situation to be abused again. That's the way I would say it. But forgiveness is ultimately something that we do for ourselves, and we do it as an example to the world. But again, prayer is the best thing you can do for some people, and unfortunately, there are people who are they're just mean. I know that sounds like, oh, like, no, I mean, they're just mean. They may never really change, but it doesn't mean you don't forgive them. It doesn't mean you don't pray for them. You just understand that sometimes people are born mean, sometimes people are made mean. Sometimes things happen to people and they don't understand and they never grow beyond it, and we can pray for them. And sometimes you do need to separate yourself. If people need to understand, unfortunately, this is not an easy thing. There's no right. I like to say there's no right and wrong. There is a right and wrong, but it isn't always easy or simple to see what side is what. This is why we have the Holy Spirit. We do forgive them, though. But that forgiveness, again, doesn't mean you stay in a situation that's dangerous or that's abusive. And casting pearls before swine, it is related in that we are giving information and knowledge to people who don't deserve it. And sometimes you put down that good teaching and they look at you and that's when you know it's time to walk away, right? Well, I believe that all men, and I mean this in the broader sense, are deserving, or let me phrase this. Any man can, knowledge is meant for all, but not all men are worthy of all knowledge. Some things have to be earned. Some things people will never understand. And you just have to realize that's the way it's the way it is with everything. And we do need to, and I think this is something that I've been wrestling with, and this ties into Sunday's conversation. Even people we thought were on our side, or we thought were Christians, are not what they appeared. There hasn't been something to really winnow out the wheat from the chaff, and for a long time. Being a Christian in America has, up until now, it's never been a problem. It's always been a benefit, right? It's never, being a Christian has always actually been something you could put on a resume. So that has led to, I think, we thought certain people who were here or there, and they weren't. So we'll talk about that more on Sunday. But I think, unfortunately, we're going to see more families breaking up over this. And it is a sad and a tragic thing. But what we're seeing the separation of the wheat and the chaff. And it's going to be hard, and it's going to be long. But it is what it is. And, man, there's a lot of conversation going on here. And it's definitely left. It's not what we were talking about before. It's being done just a Catholic thing. Typically, but I think there are nuns. There are other denominations that have monastic traditions. And Titan, that's exactly what I was saying. Jesus said he was going to bring, it was going to be father against son, mother against daughter. I guess we're not going to get to Genesis 9 tonight the way it's going. It's already 8 o'clock. You know what? Hold on. Genesis 8, I think, is a quick conversation. Or 9, whatever one it is. I think it's 9. Let's go ahead and read it real quick, because really the main thing is just going to be Ham, right? It's basically the sin of Ham. Oh, I don't know, but the sin of Ham happens at the very, very end. All right, I'm going to leave it up to a vote. Right now, do you want to do Genesis 9, or do you want to do forgiveness? Give everyone a second to type in. Titan, no. Well, hold on. It depends. Depends on if you're paying for the drinks. All right, so I got one for Genesis 9, one for forgiveness. A few more seconds. Genesis. That's 2 for Genesis. Okay, we'll go for Genesis 9 then. All right, I'm going to read it. I'm going to read the entire thing, and then we'll talk about it, because there are some... there's kind of a lot, but a lot of it's just narrative, right? And kind of straightforward. So we'll start with verse 1. So God blessed Noah. So again, the flood has occurred. Everyone's gotten off the ark. And we've got the whole rainbow, whole 9 yards. So God blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. And the fear of you and the dread of you shall be on every beast of the earth, on every bird of the air, and on all that move on the earth, and all fish that are of the sea. They are given into your hand. Every moving thing that lives shall be food for you. I have given you all things, even as the green herbs. But you shall not eat flesh with its life, that is, its blood. Surely for your lifeblood I will demand a reckoning. From the hand of every beast I will require it, and from the hand of every man's brother I will require the life of man. Whoever sheds man's blood, by man his blood shall be shed. For in the image of God he made man. And as for you, be fruitful and multiply, bring forth abundantly in the earth and multiply in it." Then God spoke to Noah and to his sons with him, saying, "And as for me, behold, I establish my covenant with you and your descendants after you, and with every living creature that is with you, the birds, the cattle, and every beast of the field with you, of all that go out of the ark, every beast of the earth. Thus I establish my covenant with you. Never again shall all flesh be cut off by the waters of flood. Never again shall there be a flood to destroy the earth." And God said, "This is the sign of the covenant which I make between me and you, and every living creature that is with you, for perpetual generations. I set my rainbow in the cloud, and it shall be for the sign of the covenant between me and the earth. It shall be, when I bring a cloud over the earth, that the rainbow shall be seen in the cloud. And I will remember my covenant, which is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh. The water shall never again become a flood to destroy all flesh. The rainbow shall be in the cloud, and I will look on it to remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of all flesh that is on the earth. And God said to Noah, this is the sign of the covenant which I have established between me and all flesh that is on the earth. Now, the sons of Noah who went out in the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Ham was the father of Canaan. These were the sons of Noah, and from these the whole earth was populated. And Noah began to be a farmer, and he planted a vineyard. And he drank of the wine and was drunk, and became uncovered in his tent. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father, and told his two brothers outside. But Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid it on both their shoulders, and went backward, and covered the nakedness of their father. Their faces were turned away, and they did not see their father's nakedness. So Noah woke from his wine, and knew what his younger son had done to him. Then he said, Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants. He shall be to his brethren. And he said, Blessed be the Lord, the God of Shem, and may Canaan be his servant. And may God enlarge Japheth, and may he dwell in the tents of Shem, and may Canaan be his servant. And Noah lived after the flood 350 years. So all the days of Noah were 950 years, and he died. Okay, couple things on that. Titan, we're going to come to that here in a second, because that's a really, because this is an important point, and that's really we're going to camp on that for a little bit. One of the things, just a couple quick things though. Verses 6 through 7, where it says, "Whoever sheds man's blood, by his blood shall be shed." That section right there is actually a poem. Like, as we were discussing on when I had the gentleman on from Faith Bible, we were talking about how the Old Testament is meant to be sung, right? The reason it reads poetically is because it's written as a poem, and it's meant to be sung. So really, that's another thing on the question of translation. We have to understand this is designed to be poetry. Just because it's poetry doesn't mean it's not true, doesn't mean it's not real, just means it's playing by the rule. But even within it, it's a song within a song. So that's sort of that first point, is it tends to get interesting when you have these sort of sections that seem out of place. It's because they've turned it into a poem or to a song. It talks about how Noah became a farmer. At Ararat, the oldest known wineries and domesticated grapes are at the base of Ararat. And if anyone has studied, if you've studied, you've seen those big stones with they're massive stones with holes. They look like giant stone donuts. Those were used as weights and as let me phrase this. In the ancient world, stones much smaller than that, but in that same shape, were used. You would tie ropes around them, and they were used to sort of help create balance. And you would lower them into the water, and they would create drag. They've been called anchors, and you can say that they're anchors because they are kind of used that way, but it's not an anchor in the same way we think of it, right? So there are these stones at the base of Ararat, and there's lots of stones actually everywhere, but specifically these, they look like these ancient sort of anchors. So it's just an interesting detail there. But again, the oldest wineries. Now, archaeologically speaking, the oldest drink is actually mead. It's honey that's been turned alcoholic. Wine seems to have developed later. but the first winery is at Ararat. So just something to keep in the back of your head. Now, why does it called out that Ham was the father of Canaan at the very beginning? This is where I want to camp for a second. Remember how I said that basically everything up until Moses, right? Even if we work from the assumption that Moses is the one writing this, though I don't think he necessarily wrote every line directly, he's overseeing it, right? We have to remember it's all of this stuff is being written from this, we're writing about it here at the beginning. It's being written by people here. They're looking back at this. So in the same way that if we were talking about George Washington, right, we would use modern names for places. We would focus on the aspects of his life, and we would make connections that were important to us today because we know those connections matter. Who is the biggest opponents of the Jews in the Old Testament? Canaanites. It is the Canaanites. That's the problem, right? As we pointed out, most of the Nephilim giants, right? They come from Ham, but they don't really come just from Ham. They come from Canaan. Canaan is the father of the Canaanites. The Canaanites were the opponents of the Jews during the time of the first temple, and even slightly after. So this is why it's being called out. Now, this is why a lot of people, I disagree with them. I'm going to say that up front. But again, this channel is about giving you all the information, right? There are some people who believe this event does not happen, that this was entirely made up by rabbinical scholars who are writing this text in order to give them justification for the cleansing of the Levant. That is a claim that scholars make. I disagree with it wholeheartedly. This event happens. Now, what is the event? We're going to talk about that. But no, I don't believe that it didn't happen. But it goes back to, but then why are we calling out that Ham is the father of Canaan at the very beginning? Why is that such a big thing? It's to understand why Canaan was cursed, but also because that's what's important to the Jews at the time. Who were their enemies, right? Tom, have fun. Well, plus we're supposed to wrestle with it, right? We're supposed to wrestle with the text. So for them, right, for the Jews of the time, Canaan was an important figure. This story is important to them. That's why they're calling it out at the beginning. But there's still more going on here, right? Why, if Ham is the one who does this thing, why is Canaan cursed? That's the real question. Because we've already answered the one. Why is Canaan his name being thrown here all over the place? My mustache is weird today. Canaan's name is being thrown around because what we just discussed, because that's who is important to the Jews at this time when the book is being written. But why would why would Noah curse Canaan and not Ham? Well, here's the thing. We have to remember this is being written. This event is not being written at the time. It's being written later, right? It's being written down later. So why are they focusing all this on Canaan? And why would Noah curse Canaan, not Ham? So there's a couple different theories. Lamp of light, we're going to come to that one in a second. We're going to give you the theories. The main theory for Ham, or for Canaan rather, well, let's actually say what is the sons of hold on, where did Ham go? Oh, I just had it too. Japheth. Because Canaan's not even the firstborn, right? That's the weirdest. Like, that's the other thing that everyone's pointing to is why Canaan? Canaan is not the firstborn. Like, it's not like Noah was like, okay, I'm going to curse your firstborn. That's what I thought. I wanted to triple check that before I said it, because Canaan's like the fourth, is like Ham's fourth son. So why? So let's focus on the first question: is what did Ham do? Well, this is a point of huge debate. I mean, you can find, it isn't like there's a bunch of people who fall on one side and they're all well respected and they're educated and they've done the study, like they're all here, and it's just you have weirdos from Alabama with this thought over here. That's not the case. You can find extremely well respected, extremely well learned, extremely godly men, and they all have different opinions as what the sin of Ham is. The main ones, right, is the nakedness itself was that Noah was wearing the pelts that had been given to Adam and Eve, and that Ham stole them and gave them to Canaan. That is one claim. A lot of this comes from the book of Jasher, which we've discussed on many occasions. I think I'm going to make a special episode just for that one. I don't believe that is the case, because I don't trust the book of Jasher, because the book of Jasher we have today is not the book of Jasher mentioned in the Bible. It just isn't. We know that. But that's one theory. That's why he becomes naked, is because essentially he was wearing them as undergarments. That's the theory. Ham takes them and gives them to Canaan. But again, the problem I have with that outside of Jasher is, why would he give them to Canaan and not his oldest son? Like, if you're going to, in particular that culture, you give it to the oldest son. You don't give it to Canaan. He's like your fourth born. Why would you give it to him? So there's some problems there. Secondly, how do we know? Like, here's the other problem. If that's like his fourth born, like, how much time has passed? Right? Um, well, so okay, so that's a great point, Lamplified, and that's exactly where I'm coming. There's, how much, we don't know how much time has passed since the end of the flood and now. Like, we just don't know. There is the question, though, about the nakedness itself in the Middle East, right? This is, again, we have to understand it's that culture. Again, you go back archaeologically, they were all basically naked except for loincloths half the time. Even the more advanced societies like Sumer and Egypt and Mesopotamia, they were, most, the women were flying free, right? So it was just like a thing around your waist. That's all you had. So this question of nakedness is sort of a question, because nakedness now and nakedness then were kind of different things. So why would looking at him naked be a thing? And how does he even know it happened? Because it's clear that they don't tell him. So some people think that what happened was, it was Ham telling his brothers that, hey, Dad's passed out drunk, that he was trying to undermine his father and his son's respect for him as paterfamilias, by denigrating his father. Like, look, Dad's drunk again. He's passed out naked in the tent. That's possible. It is possible. But kind of here's where I'm at, and y'all have already called it out, because you are much, much smarter than the average bear. Leviticus. I hope I didn't lose it. There it is. Allow me to read for you Leviticus 18, verse 7 through 16. Though I don't even think I need to go that far. And then I think Leviticus 20:11 through 21 is also connected in this. But really, the first section is all we need. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your father, which is the nakedness of your mother. She is your mother. You shall not uncover her nakedness. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your father's wife. It is your father's nakedness. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your sister, your father's daughter, or your mother's daughter, whether brought up in the family or in another home. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your son's daughter or of your daughter's daughter, for their nakedness is your own nakedness. Okay, so let me repeat that just so we're all on the same page. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your father, which is the nakedness of your mother. She is your mother. You shall not uncover her nakedness. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your father's wife. It is your father's nakedness. So, nakedness in this context is a soft euphemism for sex. It is sexual in nature. However, it's again, we have to understand this is a very different culture from ours, right? So, and again, remember, this is all the same Pentateuch. This is the 5 books written by Moses or overseen by Moses. The fact the language, again, like I said, with the whole breath in the nostrils thing, that's meant to mean something. This language is meant to mean something. Yeah, it's about to get ugly. So the way they have it out, right? If you're seeing your father's nakedness, which it's your mother's nakedness, is what you know. So that's how it's going. So what it means is, I'm gonna come out and say it. My reading of this text is in light of Leviticus. Ham, what's probably happening here? Dad's probably become a drunk, and he's probably passing out more often than we think. Survivor's guilt is a real thing. Ham knows this. Ham wants to supplant the family line and make his line paterfamilias. Either he wants to become paterfamilias or he wants his son through his mother. Again, we don't know if it's his mother or simply Noah's wife. Either way, it's still gross. He wants that child to become paterfamilias. This seems unbelievably insane to us today. You have to understand this is not the mindset of this era is different from ours. Remember the story of Absalom and David, right? What did David do? Or not of David, what did Absalom do? He brought of David's concubines and wives, and he slept with them in public. Why? This is actually kind of this is a very old Bedouin thing, and we actually see it in many cultures around the world. Essentially, it's again, sex is sex, but sex is also sort of seen differently in the ancient world than it is today. This is why Paul, like we talked about, when Paul talks about the effeminates, we misunderstand that verse entirely. I don't want to get off track, but essentially Paul is, today we talk about heterosexual, homosexual. That is not the concept in the ancient world. In fact, the Egyptian doesn't even have a concept of a virgin. These things don't exist in the ancient world. It's penetrator and penetratee. That's the conversation that they were having back then. To be the penetrator meant you had power over. So if you go and you take someone else's wife, you're showing your supremacy. This was Ham trying to usurp Noah. That is what this is like. Gene, thank you. That's this, like when lions, when they take over pride, they kill the young, right? Same thing. Ham is trying to usurp Noah's authority over the planet. That's what's happening here. So, why do I think this? Is there anything in the text that would, outside of the connection to Leviticus, hold on, getting cotton mouth here. Is there anything in the text that would make me think that that's what's happening here? Yes, there is. And it's the actual curse itself. I didn't have it on my phone. I read it here. All right. It'd help if I pulled up the material itself. Let me reread the curse, and you tell me if you catch it too. This is Noah. Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants. He shall be a servant of servants. He shall be to his brethren. And he said, Blessed be Shem, the Lord God of Shem, and may Canaan be his servant. May God enlarge Japheth, and may he dwell in the tents of Shem, and may Canaan be his servants. Did you catch it? He shall be a servant of servants, he shall be to his brethren. If Canaan is a child of Ham, how is Shem and Japheth his brothers? Now, there are some who would say, well, but brethren can mean many things. Fair enough, that is true. But he's specifically calling Canaan the servant of his brethren, and he mentions the brothers as Shem and Japheth. Now, last time I checked, I only have sisters. Actually, I have a sister all my other sisters are by marriage. But if I had two brothers, my two sons, to them would be nephews. Their offspring would be cousins. So how in the world, right, how does Canaan become a brother to Shem and Japheth? The only way I can see from the text for him to be called a brother is if the mother of Canaan was either Ham's mother or the three kids, either it's their mother or it's simply Noah's wife. Noah's wife would still kind of make him, I mean, the idea that he would do that to his mother, I think is just oogie on a lot of levels, but it's a story about the entire planet being wiped out and drowned. So let's be honest, there was a lot of oogie things going on anyway, cannibalistic giants and all that. So anyway, Mr. So we got some comments in here. So anyway, from my reading, and again, I hold like many things, I hold them with an open hand. I am very open to other readings. I am open to other opinions. If there's another reason for this to be the case, I'm all for it. But right now, given the text and context, and the fact that we see a lot of Nephilim coming out of Ham's line, and the Canaanites tend to have a lot of Nephilim in them also, I tend to think this is the case. One thing we cannot separate, and this is an important thought, and then we'll jump over into everyone's comment. A lot of scholars today try to look at the Nephilim as purely political tyrants, as people who are politically powerful, not necessarily actual giants, like physically. I understand the logic behind that. I really do. And I'm sympathetic. I just don't think that they are separate. I don't think we separate the physical giants from their lust for power. I think there's a connection there. To be a tyrant, to want to rule over, it's a very human emotion. But I don't think that the Nephilim being born out of the line of someone who would try to usurp his father's position this way. I think thematically it works. I think mythologically it works. And I think historically it works. That's the kind of person who would have offspring that would do the kinds of things the Nephilim do. I go back to, I think the Nephilim cross back over. We get them again because of what happens at the Tower of Babel. I think Babel is the key to all of it. But what starts us on this path, I think, is the sin of Ham. This event right here. I should probably not do that. That's even worse. Anyway, put my hands down. It is, in my opinion, Ham slept with his, we'll just say Noah's wife, just so it's slightly less oogie in my head. Canaan's the offspring. Noah curses Canaan because Canaan was intended to be the new usurped head of the family, because it was supposed to go Noah and then Shem, right? Shem's the firstborn. And so Ham, who's the second born, he's the middle kid, he's trying to usurp the whole thing. He wants Canaan to become, he's sort of taking advantage of his father's situation. That's what he's trying to do. This is about usurpation of authority. He wants Canaan to be the next sort of line and lineage into the future, the next tyrant. So that's why he's cursed to become a servant. That's all. That's my reading. I hold it with an open hand. But that's my thought. And I do think the fact that Nephilim were coming out of this line makes a lot of sense. So now I will turn that back to the questions we had, because we had some other comments. MH 1953, so sex is like staking a claim. In the ancient world, that was how it was viewed. Yes, very much. So, okay, Titan. So, but it was with no, well, hold on. So again, this is why the phrase, he saw his father's nakedness, was so important. That's why we have to go to Leviticus. To see your father's nakedness is not to do anything with your father. It's the mother. To do something with the mother is to see your father's nakedness. That's the whole point of Leviticus. It's not that he did something to Noah. He did something to Noah's wife. That's the problem. That's why, and so it's the language. That's why Leviticus is the key to unlocking this particular verse or section of the scripture. Noah's wife defiled from that point, so no one ever be unless he would be alone. Mr. D Knuckle, that is entirely possible. I don't know that we necessarily can make that leap. I don't know that we can. But I'm going to look into it. I like that. That hadn't necessarily crossed my mind. I'm going to double check on that, and we'll talk about it next week. Cheese freak. Yes, that is what happened. Now, odds are either his mother or his father's wife, whichever one it is, she was probably passed out too. We see a repeat of this in a different way with Lot and his daughters, right? What do his daughters do? They get him drunk. He sleeps with them. They have kids. And remember, this happens on multiple occasions. They are getting him drunk. So drunk that he doesn't remember what happens. that may have been what happened here, but the point is, it's kind of clear that again, if Noah's passed out, she may have been also. So yeah, but yeah, that's what happened. Who's gonna kill us? All right, gotta go. Unfortunately, yeah, the thing jumped down, so I'm trying to get back to where. Hold on. That was the first divorce. Yeah. Okay. Yes, the concubines were objects, and this is something we need to remember, guys. The ancient world did not really. We don't see it, right? We kind of forget that the Bible is particularly the Old Testament, actually all of it, but particularly the Old Testament, the histories of it. The Bible is interacting with the world. There is a culture that it does not. The Bible is introduced into a culture. God is introduced into a culture that he's trying to shape, but he's not the only force in it, right? We tend to forget that there are other cultures, cultural norms, practices, traditions, and laws that the Bible is, while it's being written, is interacting with these things. It doesn't mean that there are a lot of times when things occur in the Bible and God is entirely silent on it, not because he's approving or even disapproving or anything. It's just what is. It's a history of what occurred. Women in the ancient world were objects. They were cattle property in many cases. The Bible, though, is unique in the fact that it does give women rights. And the Talmud, again, being born out of the Bible, gives a lot of rights to women. It's not a coincidence that the cultures that give women rights and view them as human have all come out of Judeo-Christian traditions. That's not a coincidence. It's because of what the Bible did. We have to understand, though, that it took from the flood to today for that to be the case. So, unfortunately, humans are evil creatures. We just are. Yeah, but the concubines, particularly, they were just objects. Mostly because the concubines and wives were from foreign nations. They were sort of like a peace treaty. So, yeah, Canaan's line brings back the Rephaim giants. So yeah, just trying to say. Yeah, David still took care of them. He didn't cast them out, but he wasn't with them any longer either. Again, what you have to understand is, again, the concubines, they were not about his sexual needs. That's not what they were there for. They were there as servants. They were there as peace treaties with tribes and other nations. It was just like, hey, I'm a wealthy man. I have this land out here. I want to get in good with the king. Next time I show up at the king's house, I'm going to bring him all these flocks. And I'm going to give him a couple of concubines because that's how I get on his good side. That's what it was. It's not that he wanted them. It's necessarily per se. It was that they were given to him as gifts, as treaties, things like that. Again, as cattle property. That's what it was. They were things, not people to him. Had to corrupt the patriarch. So again, I don't think Satan's trying to corrupt the patriarch. This is about Ham and Ham's son. And now he doesn't and here's the thing. He doesn't have to kill other people to take this power. That's the problem. In this, again, this goes back to a lot of these traditions. We think old, we think ancient, we think Middle Ages, and we think about knights and kings and how they would. It's like, well, you would have had to have killed everybody to have taken power. Not really the case. We tend to forget that European, particularly by the Middle Ages, the church had changed a lot of things. And again, the Germanic tribes had different traditions. Canaan would have taken power because they would have seen what Ham had done as taking control over Noah. So Ham is now above Noah, thus making Canaan the firstborn and rightful heir. That's how they would have seen it legally. But it appears that from what happens, that Noah, his curse, we don't know all the details, but it seems like that works. Like it whatever Ham was trying to do, it didn't work, and why it didn't work, we don't really know. We're only given this sort of high details. They don't say how he was able to get around it, or if basically they just all looked at him and said, "Screw you, you sick punk. We're not doing it that way." Right? We don't know. At the end of the day, all power, all tyranny, these are all born out of our willingness to go along with them. Okay. It's okay. Ham is the middle son. So is it just a power play? It is a power play, but it's a power play by the second born. Shem doesn't have to play the power, right? Shem's the oldest kid. He already has the power. Ham is doing this to supersede Shem. He's trying to be the number one. That's what he's trying to do. And yes, Satan absolutely planted the thought in his head. But so this is a power play. Now, again, it's interesting that we're not told how. Like, we're not told why they don't. Because again, this Ham is the second. Again, this is a foreign concept to us. But the idea being, if you're willing to do this, you become powerful because you've. Try to think of it. It's like in all the I just forgot his name. Reservoir Dogs. Anyway, Kill Bill. Quentin Tarantino, right? If you watch all of Quentin Tarantino's films, and I don't recommend you necessarily do that, but if you did watch them, if you watch closely, there is something he does in every film, and you can tell everyone who survives, right? Everyone who survives, and the telltale sign is they take food from someone else's plate. That's the key. And a lot of people have said, they notice this, they ask them, what are you doing? What is this weird thing you have about food and people taking food off of other people's plate and eating it in front of them? He said it's because for him, it's a power play. In all of his films, in their universe, that's the ultimate act of power, because that's someone's food. And you are reaching in front of them, taking it and eating it in front of them. It is a power play, right? For him, in his movies, that's sort of how you gain, MH 1953, you're the better for it. That's how he gains power. That's how you gain power. Well, in the Middle East, you go and you sleep with the chieftain's wife, you've got the power. Like, because what you basically did was you basically looked at them and you looked at the chief and said, I got your woman. You ain't nothing, right? It's kind of the same. And so it allows you to gain power. That was the idea. Now, generally, you had to kill the chieftain, but that was sort of the idea. That seems to be what Ham was doing. He was usurping Shem, and Canaan is going to take the lead and is going to be the familial line from which would be considered the prime, right? That's why Noah curses Canaan specifically. But the question becomes, why does it fail? Why don't they play ball? Honestly, I think it comes down to they just all looked at him and said, that's not happening. And you know what? This actually does very much tie into Sunday. So I'm going to say it this way, and we'll end on this thought. Our political tyrants, all political power is derived from the consent of those whom they serve, of those whom they rule over. The only thing that is required for any government to collapse and to disappear, for any tyrant to be rendered useless, is for the people under him to say no. That's it. I think they won by saying no. They said, these traditions mean nothing to us. The world is gone. We're not going to play by those rules. I'm going to curse your kid. You're going to go live the rest of your life. I think that's why it went that way. I think Satan did set this up, which is why Canaanites are the opposition for the Jews. Period in the story. That's also why so many Nephilim seem to come out of Canaan. That curse. Is this why? I've seen the questions in here. Is this why Noah doesn't have any more kids? I don't think it was necessarily that she was made barren, but rather that Noah doesn't sleep with her. I think that's entirely possible. Well, but in image 1953, to your question, you live in the 21st century Western culture. It doesn't make sense to you. This would have made sense to him. So yeah, I think the reason Noah doesn't have any more kids, because clearly she could, but he doesn't have any more kids, is because of this event. In fact, the Lamp of Light has actually touches on this, that they are finding that women do seem to retain some aspect of DNA from the men they've slept with. So to a point, if we really want to get, again, this is a theory, only a theory, it is entirely possible that aspects of that DNA is retained, and so every child that's produced after that has, while primarily the father, there may be other DNA that slipped in. So it's entirely possible Canaan was the first post-flood human to have more than just the DNA he was supposed to have. That may be the setup for the whole thing. I don't think Noah's wife was cursed. I think Noah maybe she was cursed. I don't know. We just don't know. But I do think that this is why Noah doesn't have any more sons after that. Because as everyone caught at the very beginning, God is talking. Well, of course, God would talk to Noah and his sons because that's all that's left. And Noah is the father of the household, which means he's the priest of the household. He's the priest of humanity. So, of course, God would speak to Noah. But he says for Noah and his sons to be fruitful and multiply. So why don't we see Noah being fruitful and multiplying? This is why. Because his wife was contaminated, was corrupted because of what Ham did. Now, part of this is also in Noah, because he wasn't supposed to be running around getting drunk, was he? We can forgive him for being drunk because probably had some, the one thing I think, this is the only thing I think that stupid Noah movie that Russell Crowe did that got right was the screams of the people trying to get into the ark. Imagine being on the ark and hearing the screams of the people trying to get on after God has shut the door. I would imagine that haunted Noah. I would imagine that everything wasn't nice and tidy when the ark landed and everything kind of went away. I wouldn't be surprised if there were bodies that had, decomposed human remains. Again, been over 100 some odd days. They probably found skulls every once in a while. Again, a lot of that was fossilized, crushed, but I don't think that they didn't have some of that left. I think that all sticks with him. I think the entire world that he knows, everyone that he ever knew, had ever spoken with, being dead, like, that's a catastrophic event. That is trauma. I can understand why he turned to drink. It doesn't mean it's what he was supposed to do. He had responsibilities. He was the priest between God and his sons. He had an obligation that he failed. And this is the failure that is to remind us of why we need Jesus, why Jesus had to come. Adam, he was the priest to all of humanity because he was the first. He was made by God. He fails to protect the woman from what? The serpent, which is Satan. Noah, he's a priest to his sons and his wife and their daughter and their wives and his kids and their children. He fails because he's a drunkard. He couldn't even protect his wife. In the same way that Adam didn't protect his wife. What do we see? No, Moses, he fails. He can't enter into the promised land because he disobeys God. Also, he's got problems with his wife. We'll talk about that when we get there. Abraham, Ishmael, anyone? What we see all throughout the Old Testament is this: men raised up by God to do a great and mighty thing. They are priests. They have a unique relationship with God. They see God face to face, and they fail. They do their job, but not all the way. They screw it up because they are flawed. That's why Jesus has to come. We see Jesus's successes in the failures of the patriarchs. Adam can't protect his bride from the Satan. Noah's drunk and traumatized from the world previously being destroyed to tend to his bride. Jesus doesn't have that problem. He destroys the old world, creates the new one, and tends to the bride. Abraham has multiple children that he wasn't necessarily supposed to have, and it causes problems. Jesus, there's no problem. There's one kingdom, one city, not multiple. On and on and on. These failures, these problems, regardless of what they are in their repercussions, are simply examples of why Jesus had to come, why we need Jesus so much to set up the kingdom, because we suck at it. How does the wisest man have the dumbest king succeed him? Because that's humanity, baby. That's humanity. Hey, Rob's still alive. Saw you there. You want to know what it's like? We look at these things, we're like, how could they do this? Because we're human. They're human. We do the same thing in their spot. That's the trick. That's the thing we have to remember. If it was us in that time, we do the same thing. The only thing special about us is that we got Jesus. That's the only thing that makes us that makes us different from them, and it shows why we need him so very much. On that note, guys, I will see you on Sunday. It's going to be fun. It's going to be pointed. I'll say it that way. I don't know that I'm even necessarily emotionally ready for it, but it's going to happen. So Sunday, we have next Thursday. Then I am on vacation for a week, and hopefully when I come back, everything will be right with the world. That's what I'm hoping for. So guys, be good. Let's and again, if I'm sending money to Alan tomorrow night. So if you have anything else, like even $5 or $10 means a lot to him, because of where he's at, and actually goes a long way. So if you want to, PayPal me tonight or tomorrow morning. Guys, until then, I will see y'all on Sunday. Y'all just have a good time. And let's keep praying for one another, and let's have heart. God is doing something. We don't always see it. I'm saying this for myself right now because it all makes sense on Sunday. We don't always see it, but he is doing something. He is working in a way that the problem is it just doesn't fit with what we want it to be. But he is doing something, and if what we've read is the indication, it's better than we're going to do, and it's going to be bigger and more magnificent than anything. So Lamp of Light, that's a good point. In the description below, there is a PayPal that has my address. You can go to PayPal, and it's Jar of Paint Comics, I believe. I can't read my own description. Hold on. I think I can. Can I? Oh, I can. Yeah. So if you go down the description underneath the link for those other guys over at Not Playing Politics, they're wonderful people. You should be listening to them. It talks about to donate to Alan in Kenya. There's jarofpaintcomics@yahoo.com. Go to PayPal, type in Jar of Paint Comics, that's plural, at yahoo.com. It should pull us up. It'll pull me up at just Jar of Paint, and just put Alan in the description line, and I will know that the money is meant for Alan. So yeah, unfortunately, I don't know how to do the link, because I don't know how to do the link. I'm lucky to do this. Like, this is using all of my vast teeny tiny knowledge of how to make computers work. I chose, there are other programs out there. I chose this one because it was just flat out stupid. You can't break it, although I have. So yeah, I don't know how to do the link. Sorry. I should probably ask my daughter to see if she can set all that up for me, because she can. So anyway. And yes, Gene, sometimes he says no. But we'll talk about that on Sunday, because that's a big thing. And yes, Alexander is awesome. Alexander Keaton's an awesome dude. I wish I could have him on the show. I really do. But he's very busy. He's a very busy man. Anyway, I will see y'all on Sunday. Y'all be good.